This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, and welcome to you, Dr. Lottie Valentine.
Yeah, thank you.
It is great to have you here. We just had a wonderful discussion, and you talked about your 2 near-death experiences. And for folks that would like to listen to that, go ahead and find the link in the description. But we've got a lot more to talk about, so you might want to stick around right now. Dr. Lottie, I found it really interesting because you said the earth that you looked down on was covered with a grid. This was during your near-death experience. And then your spirit guides had said to you that everything on earth is connected to each other, but everything on earth is connected to God. So why were you shown that, and why were you told that?
Well, I think I was told that because it's guided me to do the work that I'm doing today. So after many, many years of being sick and struggling to get well, I finally, after 12 years, so in 2004, I was well enough to actually think about going back to work. Now, in my youth, I was a programmer and a systems analyst, and I knew I had to go back and work in health and healing. And I looked on the computer and I found this degree, and it said naturopathic doctor or naturopathic medicine. And I realized it was a real medical school. And I said, I really can't do that because I'm already in my 40s. And even if I do all the prereqs and biology, chemistry, physics, and all of that, there's no guarantee they're going to take me. I'm so much older than most of the people that are applying. And I left and headed to the kitchen, and the spirit world again drops in. And the spirit world says that I have to go to medical school and I have to be a doctor, and I'm to combine East and West. And I said, well, naturopathic medicine is kind of like combining East and West, because we are considered like a general practitioner. We do all the pharmaceuticals just like regular MDs, but then we also study botanical medicine, homeopathy, and acupuncture, and also nutrition. So the spirit world said you have to combine East and West. You have to bring messages to the people, and you have to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. And I said, what are you talking about? I've never thought of myself as an author. I've never, thought of myself, what are you talking about? Messages, bringing messages to people. And they said, just focus on getting your degree. And so I enrolled in the prereq classes right away. And then, many, many years later, in 2012, I went to medical school. And after I graduated from medical school, 2016, I was right away I met this woman I was studying craniosacral therapy. I was waiting for my license after taking the board exam. And I was studying craniosacral therapy at that point with the Upledger Institute in San Francisco. And I met this woman, and she said she was also from Arizona. We never got to work with each other. And I said, hey, I'm going to be down there in a week or 2 for a conference. I was working up in the mountains at the time. And so we meet at this restaurant, and she says, I don't know anything about this woman. And she said, I'm a medium, and, somebody is here who wants to give you a message. Are you open to receiving messages? And I was still a skeptic, even though I've been here in the spirit world for, like 18 years or something by now, right? I'm still a skeptic. Like, how could she bring somebody in for me and know anything about me or my relatives? Sure enough, it's my mom, and it's very clear. We talk about the fishing, the rowboat, and all that. And so I know it's my mom, and she says, your mom says you have to go to Arthur Findlay College. It's in England to study mediumship. And I said, I can't do that. I just graduated. I don't even have my license yet. I don't even know if I passed my boards. I did pass my boards, but I was just kind of waiting. Well, after the 3rd time, and she says, she's very adamant. She keeps saying, Arthur Findlay College, you have to go there. So I said, okay, fine. I will figure out a way to get there. Sure enough, 6 months later, I'm at Arthur Findlay College. And so that's my journey of becoming a medium, a professional medium, and working with other people. So as I'm going through that, and then I get out of that, I start working as a professional medium and doing readings for other people. And as I'm doing readings for other people, I do like 3 or 4 readings in a row that are almost identical. And it's to the point where you're starting to think, am I talking to the spirit that I talked to a few days ago or yesterday, right? Because it's the same story. And it was all about the family abuse that goes down the line. And it would start with grandma. And it was grandma was abused by the grandfather. And then the client's mom was one of the kids. And then the client's mom also married an abusive man who would also physically hurt her and the children and the client. And so 3 or 4 times in a row, I got the same thing. Well, hello, spirit world. What is this? Why are you keep showing me this pattern? The pattern of the grandparents and the parents and then the client. It's just repeating itself. So then I had already read a book by Mark Wallin called It Didn't Start With You, which was about ancestral healing. So now I was really intrigued. And I said, what is this? So I studied ancestral healing with Mark Wallin, actually during the pandemic. It was online, so we were like all these counselors and physicians from all over the world studying with him for months online and learning how to see the pattern of the ancestral things that get passed down. And we know now that that ancestral trauma gets passed down on DNA. But so that grid, right? So now we come back to the grid. That grid of that they showed me of how we are all connected to each other here on earth, but we're also connected up to that grid. So I would say, connected up to the grid is like Indra's net. It is how everything is connected. So we are all connected to each other, right? Through quantum physics and through DNA, through our magnetic field, like, the heart soul magnetic. And people who are familiar with Stephen Harold Booner's work of how we resonate and entrain with trees, with plants. It doesn't even have to have a heart for us to resonate and entrain with that. We know that the trees have a whole network. They talk to each other. We know the mushroom network, right? That's like the internet underground, the mushrooms. And people who haven't seen Fantastic Fungi, that's a great movie to learn about that, because nature itself is so intelligent and so connected, but we are part of that. So we live, we think we are living on top of the earth, but we are part of the earth. We are, when you look at the world, the entire world also exists within us, right? Just like Indra's net. Indra's net is like that fish net that I saw with a jewel at each node. But each of those jewels reflect into the other jewel at each of those nodes, just like the fish net that I saw. And so everything, so that's, consciousness or cells. But we are connected to that, but everything is reflected back into that. So every jewel has all the other jewels in it. So when you think of our consciousness or you as a person, we are also reflected onto all other people, which are reflected back into us. And when you look at your body, you have all these, billions of cells and different organs. Now you look at the earth, if you say, we got all these different continents, we got, Africa, we got United States, we have Australia. Well, your body also has the different organs. You got the liver, that could be, Australia, and then you got your heart, right? So it could be another continent. But then all of us people are the cells of the earth, just like you have cells within you. So we are part of earth. We are not living on top of the earth. We are part of that network, right? Just like your network inside of you. Everything, if you start taking things away, it doesn't work so well anymore. If you just take your liver away, well, you're hacking along, right? But as soon as you start taking things out, it doesn't work as well. Well, it's the same with the earth. The way we are destroying the earth, right? So we destroy certain things. Now other things don't work as well. We take the bees away. Now that's not going to work so well, right? It's the same thing. We are part of the earth. We are not living on top of the earth. We are part of the earth. We are part of that network and part of that grid. And that is, my work today is teaching people we are part of that grid. We are part of that network. And we are all connected to each other. And it's an illusion that we think that we are separate. And that's just for us to have this experience But, now as we are starting to raise our consciousness, we're going through an evolution, and people's consciousness are rising, and there's more interest in, understanding who we are and why we're here. But that, I would say, is how my work today has been influenced by that grid that I saw, 30 years ago.
Boy, I've got a lot of questions just on the grid. So, now that we know that we're all connected, what do we do with it?
Right. So, the first thing is that, I always tell people, if you can heal yourself, work on yourself, heal your own trauma, heal your own whatever it is that you need to heal, because when you heal, you resonate and train with everything else, just like Stephen Harry Booner told us in his book, right? We resonate with the trees, with the plants, with everything that we come in contact with. And if you go into a room and somebody is angry, you know that person is angry because you can feel the anger, right? You don't have to be intuitive. You just know, right? It's who we are. We are intuitive creatures. We know that. We know if you go into a room and somebody's staring at you and lovingly and says, wow, I really like that woman over there and I'm going to approach her, right? You can feel that love coming from that person, just like you can feel the anger. We are tuned into that, and we resonate and entrain with everything. When you're an infant, you co-regulate with your parent's nervous system, because the baby doesn't regulate itself. It regulates with the person that's the caretaker, or with mom. And so if the mom is angry or depressed, for those people out there that have had children or taken care of children, it's almost impossible to put an infant to sleep if you're angry or stressed or hurried, right? That baby is not going to go to sleep because they're co-regulating with your nervous system. They're tuning into that stress and they're just crying because they don't know what's happening, right? And it's not until you say, all right, I got to calm down, put on this calm music, and I have all the time in the world to put you down to sleep. And then the baby goes to sleep in like a minute, right? And you put that baby to sleep. But people who, everybody doesn't have had that experience, but that's such a classical example of how we tune into other people, but we also tune into everything else that is around us. We tune into animals and plants as well.
So it's like we're part of a collective. And I think that's, if I'm getting this right, is why people that have had near-death experiences say that, if you raise your vibration, it'll raise it throughout the planet. Is that part of what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. Because when you heal, right, you create a different frequency, because everything is frequencies in the end, right? This is all quantum physics and energy. But when you create healing for yourself and you heal your own trauma, and when I work with people in ancestral healing and they email me, like a week or two later and say, they come from a traumatized household as children, and all they did was having an ancestral healing session. So they created healing and understanding of why it is that they're having difficulties, because it came from, in the end, a lot of things are ancestral. But then they meet the family, and then, this other adult, maybe in his 50s, this particular person had a brother, and he said, I don't know what it is you're doing, but I can see that you're healing. And now I'm going to go to counseling because I can see that you are healing and that you are changing. And she said, all I did was have a session with you. And but for her, it was like all the lights came on and she could see and understand what it was that had triggered those problems for her. And I always say, once you can see it and understand why it is you're having issues with certain things, then you can also heal it, because now you have that understanding. So, it's amazing, because once you create healing, other people feel that, because we tune into that. We resonate and entrain with everything that's around us. We're like these little, magnetic fields that, we put out our sensors and say, is anybody mad in this room? No? Okay, good. Right? We do that automatically. We don't have to think about it. We just pick that up. Or if you're walking on the street, have you ever been followed? You're followed. You look back and you see this person walking behind you, right? Which is common, I think, for when you're young and you're in college and things like that. And you can feel that, sensation that somebody's staring at you or following you, right? It's just our intuition. We are intuitive creatures. So it's just a matter of tuning into all of that.
And I think that's important. It's an important reminder that we need to be very aware of what we're feeling because we're sending it out to others. And so when we are angry, it's going to be affecting people around us. Even if we don't think it is, we might not be saying a lot, but it's going to be affecting the people in the room with you, your family, your children, your spouse.
Yeah, absolutely. And, children are masters at this. Children are like little sponges.
Yeah.
And so they, if they live in a traumatized household, they become hypervigilant. So they have, eyes and ears at the back of their head all the time because they're afraid that somebody's going to get mad, somebody's going to explode on them, right? So they're always walking on eggshells. So they become very hypervigilant as adults because they grew up in that environment where they have to be very alert. So they're very in tune. I would say people who grow up in traumatized households like that are very empathic too, because it's for their own safety. They fine tune their abilities to keep themselves safe. I mean, it's the nervous system that just does this automatically and says, "Oh, I can feel Dad's in the driveway, but he's in a bad mood. I'm going to run to my room right now." It's like they know it before they even come through the door, right? They can sense it. And that is that hyper vigilant, tuning into other people's energy and then keeping themselves safe.
So we're all connected. We know we can do some damage that way. We also know there's positive things because we can spread that too. We can do healing. What other cool things have you discovered that we can do with this knowledge?
I think that, we are such sponges that it's just a matter of, it's always more difficult to heal your own wounds, right? To dig deep in your own traumas or things that happened to you as a child and you were unfairly treated in one way or another. But we are sponges, and I think that we have the ability to create healing much more than we think we do. And I think, one part of me says, I think you can heal almost anything. But then there is this other component to it. Because I know people that try very, very hard to heal. They are doing everything right, and they still don't heal. So what is that? Did they incarnate in this life to have that journey? To maybe they're going to get on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is perfect health, 1 you're almost dead. Maybe they're only supposed to get to level 8 in this life, and they're supposed to learn to live with some of these consequences or take a medication or whatever it is, right? Because I think it's difficult to, you can't say that on one hand, when you listen to Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, and all these people, well, is that, we create what the mind says. We can create anything. Yes, I would say that's partly that's true. But then there's also other components to that, because there are people that are doing that and they don't heal. We only hear about the people that do successfully heal, right? Because it's such a miraculous healing. But then there are other people that are also doing that and they're not healing, or they're on this 10-year-long journey to create healing. It didn't take them 3 months like somebody else had the same disease. They were well in 3 months and they had this great near-death experience, and then they returned to perfect health. And then somebody else is doing everything and praying and meditating and like everything possible, and they're still sick for 10 years. But I think part of it is our incarnation, or that, maybe a soul contract, we incarnate to have certain experiences. And, being a physician, I think it's you can't say to somebody, because I get a lot of people that say, I'm very spiritual. I know I can heal this. I really don't want pharmaceutical medicine. And I know that I can just, meditate and I can get better. And I say, why put all your eggs in one basket? Don't think, if you have some difficult disease, then use the pharmaceuticals for the time being. Get yourself to a better state. Use the supplements. Use whatever you can. And then maybe a year from now, that's the meditation part that comes in to finish off this transformative journey that you're on. But, a lot of people will also get gaslighted when they, we gaslight. Physicians gaslight patients all the time. They say, especially women, get gaslighted. They say they can't figure out what's wrong with you. Then they say, oh, you're depressed. I'm going to give you an antidepressant. And meanwhile, the poor person needs surgery, right? But that doctor is not aware of that disease. And there's certain things that tend to fall through the cracks a lot. And there's a lot of things that we don't have tests for. And so then these people, they get gaslighted by the medical industry, says, oh, it's just in your head. It's not really real, right? But that's the same thing with when we say that we can change anything and we create our reality. I'm going to create wellness in my body. I'm going to make this tumor go away. Maybe you incarnated to have chemotherapy and surgery for that tumor to go away. And then after you've done that, then you're going to stay well for the rest of your life. And it's never going to come back because you changed the way you operate. You changed the way you process your emotions and how you deal with difficult situations in your life. And you start meditating and you're doing all these other things and you change your diet and you're going to be well from now on. But it might not be what's going to get you well, right? And so we don't know who holds onto what ticket. So and I think people are very quick to jump on the bandwagon of saying, oh, I can pray, I can meditate, I can drink carrot juice, I can do all these things. Use all the tools you have. There's nobody that says you can only use one tool. Use everything you got to get yourself well. And then you can implement your new strategy of staying well and not getting sick again.
I think a lot of times people want answers. And I think the way our medical system is set up, it's hard because doctors are so specialized. So I know one of the things you do is some medical intuition. So how successful, if somebody comes to you, I know you said there's all these different circumstances, but in general, of just at least giving them some answers of where to start looking.
Yeah. And I would say that's typically what happens. So for some reason, I would say people who see me as a medical intuitive, and I always ask the spirit world beforehand too. I said, okay, what's wrong with this next one? Okay. And then they start talking about, they have food allergies and digestive issues. And I say, okay, I know you talk about all these things, but what's the underlying problem with this? And then I say, before we got onto the session, I asked the spirit world and they said endometriosis. Tell me about your, menstrual cycles and were they painful? How were they? And sometimes the people, I've gotten so many of the endometriosis, it's almost laughable because I know so much about it myself. And it's something that typically falls through the cracks and the regular OBGYNs are not trained. And it's this whole thing, we're changing the way we're looking at things, and changing the curriculum in the medical schools as well. But it's things that tend to fall through the cracks a lot, and that's why people are guided to me. So it's, so then of course it comes out that either they had surgery for endometriosis, but it wasn't the right surgery, so it's still there. Because many times people get misdiagnosed with something else, but the underlying issue is a completely different disease, or they have, neurological issues, or they have, something else, could be almost anything. But the way I would say the spirit world works is they send me people that I will know what it is. It's very unusual that I would not be able to. I don't know if I've even had anyone that I did not give them advice on. Either it has to do with just helping them find the right, saying, okay, I know what you have. It's this, and this. And these things typically fall through the cracks. What you need to find in your state where you're living or in your country where you're living, because I work with people from everywhere, go find somebody who is good at this. And sometimes I can just send them to a website, look for these doctors. These are the ones that can help you because you have one of these things over here. But when you see a regular physician, we're not trained to know. There's a lot of things we don't know, right? When you go to the regular doctor, and I would say a lot of times those are the people that I get in the medical intuitive side, but also sometimes it can be, before the person comes on, the spirit world says ancestral. So then I said, okay, it's ancestral. So then we start talking, and then I say, all right, look at it this way. Who, is there anybody in your family? It could be genetic, it could be trauma, it could be emotional patterns or things that happen. And then that's where it's held. So I would say I'm always guided I always work with the spirit world. It's just something that's now part of my life after 30 years. It's not something I can easily turn off. It's just always there, when I work with people and to help people. And that's why that's my work, is just to try and get people on the right path, either telling them what they have, telling them the doctor they need, or the treatment they need, and then they can go, wherever they are in the world to find those people.
Now, maybe this is what you were just talking about, but your spirit guides told you that you were to tell people messages. So what are those messages that you're supposed to tell people?
Right. So it's really fascinating because for a long time, I got this message in 2004. It wasn't until 2017 that I went to Arthur Findlay College for the first time. Now, the first time I had a reading with a teacher there. So that medium that I met at the conference, who sent me to Arthur Findlay College, she also said, "Oh, your mom is telling me you are to write 2 books. No, wait, 3." And that was the original message I got in 2004. So now I'm at Arthur Findlay College, right, years later. And the teacher says, "Oh, I have your mom here." And your mom says you are to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. So that message I've gotten 4 times now from 4 different mediums. It's always the same message, and it comes across with the exact same wording. And the messages, so here I am at Arthur Findlay College, and it wasn't until I was there and the teacher is saying, okay, so we are the messengers. We are giving the client a message from the spirit world. You are, giving them a message for healing or whatever was going to come through. And all of a sudden I was like, the message, I'm to give messages to the people. And I had no idea. I didn't even know what mediumship was back in 2004. I was not part of that world at all. I just kind of looked at it as, these spirit guides are talking to me, and my relatives, when they pass away, stop by and say hello and say I've moved on to the other side, and right, all these different experiences. And I never put it together. I didn't know that that was called a message until 2017. And it's just so classic, because that's always how the spirit world is. When they give you a message, you think it's going to be in 3 or 6 months, and it's literally 5 years later. Now this is finally happening that you heard about years ago. And I feel like time moves so slowly on the earth plane, because to them it always seems like something's going to happen next week, but then it's years later, right? And so the messages is delivering messages from the spirit world, or delivering messages working with the spirit guides, right? So also do spirit guides, messages from your spirit guides. And it's a really fun session, because many times we don't know, what are we doing here? Am I even doing the right thing? Am I supposed to be doing this? Right? And then the spirit guide comes through, and then I sketch the spirit guides in like 5 minutes, and I take a picture of it for the client so I can email it afterwards. But it's always the main spirit guide. And I've always look at that main spirit guide as that's a reflection of who you are. And that spirit guide is saying, this is what you're here to do, kind of thing, but of course we have all these different options, but that main, what are you here to do? Are you here to be an accountant? Are you here to be a medium? Are you here to be a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, right? It kind of gives an idea of who you are in this life, because your spirit guide is really good at that. And that's why you have that spirit guide with you to help you with that. But then you have all the other spirit guides that come and go and help you with different things, as you need them. But when we do that session, it's always the main one that comes through. So that's a really fun one.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So you've had the 2 near-death experiences. You've had a lot of contact with spirit guides and whatever on the other side. So from all of that, what is the most important thing that you've learned?
I would say that we are eternal. There is no such, our physical life ends, but we are eternal beings.
And that's what a lot of people need to hear, especially people that have lost loved ones, or people that are just afraid for their own destiny.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Lottie, so we've talked a bit about what you do. Tell us, where people can connect with you. If you have some books you want to mention, just fill us in on all of that.
Yeah. So my website is drlottie.com. So just DRLOTTE.com. And on that website, you can see all the different types of sessions that I offer, medical intuitive, ancestral healing, mediumship, messages from your spirit guides, etc. And you can just book sessions online by going to that website if you're interested in working with me. Also, my book is called Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul. And I wrote that book to help people understand that it's never too late to change your life. Because I started medical school when I was 54 and graduated when I was 58. And there is nothing that says that you're too old. And it's kind of funny because I was already in menopause when I went to med school. But we used to think, like, when I grew up, menopause, that seemed like that's grandma sitting in the rocking chair knitting, and life is pretty much over. But we are in a very different era now. I think most of us can expect to be 100 or maybe older, because the medical industry, we're doing transplants, and you need a new heart, you need a new kidney, right? You should expect to be 100. So if you're 50, you haven't even lived half of your adult life yet, because you weren't even an adult until you were 2021. You were a child until then, and you got another maybe 50 years to go, right? So when you look at it that way, there is I have patients that are in their 80s or 90s that act like they're 70, right? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, if I'm going to be that 95-year-old that acts like a 70 or 75-year-old, that could be me. I don't want to be doing what I used to do. I'm going to be doing, following my path, following my incarnation of what it is that I'm here to do in this lifetime. So in that book, I try to help transform people. I have like a chapter what it's like to be that adult student in med school. But the book is really about, it starts with my near-death experience and what happens, and then how my spirituality was developed and all different situations and things that happened, and how to tune into that, so that when you have your own experiences, instead of saying, oh, it was just, it just happened, it was just coincidence, right? Don't push that away, but look into that, because there are no coincidences. And how do you tune into that? How do you tune into the animals? How do you tune into nature? How do you tune into the spirit world? And so that book helps, I'm hoping it will help people transform their own life and put them on their own spiritual journey. And then I also developed, I'm a collaborator with Hemisync, so I'm developing their Ancestral healing series. So we have 2 out. The mother wound, which is very common. Even if you had a very lovely mother, you probably still have a mother wound. It just shows up in a different way. And the second one was the relationship wounds, and there'll be another one releasing next summer.
It all sounds very interesting. I really like the message of your book too, that you're never too old, because that's something that I struggled with, starting this podcast. Am I too old to do this? I'm kind of starting over. And, so it's encouraging to hear that really it's never too late.
Yeah.
Dr. Lottie, do you have any parting words before we go?
I would say, we are all connected. We are all one, and it is all divine. And so are you.
That's a beautiful message. Thank you so much, Dr. Lottie. It has been great talking with you. I feel like I really learned a lot from both this episode and your prior episode. And for all of you listening, please, if you enjoyed it, give it a like, share your comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And subscribe if you haven't done that, and share it with a friend if you know someone who might like this. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And Dr. Lottie, thank you again for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.